Hi everyone, welcome again to a new unit from Business Ethics and CSR. Today we're going to talk about CSR and sustainability reports. Specifically, we are going to focus on the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. In order to understand the birth of the SDGs, we must look back and observe the evolution of the concept of development itself. Since the 70s, development theories have tried to provide answers to the problems facing society. Initially, the solutions were proposed through economic growth. Then, when seen its failures, the model of the satisfaction of basic needs was developed from a social perspective. Later, sustainable development was promoted mainly oriented to the environmental dimension. And finally, in the 90s, it came to the proposal of human development, the famous Human Development Index from the hand of Amartya Sen and the UNDP. Sustainable development is consolidated through different world summits, specifically with the 92 Rio Summit, in which the Rio Declaration and Agenda 21 are established, where the fundamental principle that all countries should comply with on sustainable development are declared: human dignity and environment. The Millennium Declaration established the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, predecessor of the SDGs. The MDGs create a specific goal to ensure environmental sustainability. Finally, Rio +20, the UN summit that takes place 20 years after the 92 Rio Summit, in which it agrees to promote a green economy and create an institutional framework for sustainable development. That framework would lead to the current SDGs. The MDGs were 8 goals to cover the years from 2000 until 2015. They have some targets and also a few indicators to measure its development. These goals were proposed for the poorest countries to help them to develop and reach a minimum development standards. They focus on international cooperation. Rich countries help the undeveloped countries. The MDGs was a really successful program. For example, the global number of extreme poor was reduced in half. The global out-of-school children on primary school age was reduced in half. And also, the global antiretroviral therapy treatment increased 12 times. Another data is that the global internet penetration increased in 37%. For 2015, there were more girls in primary school than boys in Southern Asia. 90% of the countries have more women in parliaments, and also 98% of the ozone depleting substance was eliminated since the 90s. The idea was we cannot make the same mistakes as we did in the MDGs. The MDGs were excluded many people in the world from the objectives that they were set. It was led by the states, which implies that the responsibility to comply rested only on the states. The MDGs were defined by the heads of government of 189 countries without consulting those affected by the problems they were trying to solve. The Rio +20 summit is the summit at which it is decided that a new agenda, initially called post-2015, will be created. The consultative process has been the largest in history, more than 8 million participants. Open working groups were set up with the representatives from each UN country and other groups to actively involve civil society, including women, children and youth, indigenous people, NGOs, local authorities, workers and unions, companies, the scientific community, and also farmers. These groups developed the first SDG proposal, This proposal later was negotiated between the governments, and in parallel it was discussed at the Addis Ababa conference on how the new agenda would be financed. The declaration of the agenda took place on September 25, 2015 in New York, was approved by 193 countries, with the eradication of extreme poverty as the great challenge of humanity. The declaration considers sustainable development as economical, social, and environmental development, with a center place on the dignity of people. It is a universal agenda not only for the poorest countries, but for all people without any discrimination or exclusion, and with the involvement of all actors of society to make it a reality. The agenda can be synthesized as a statement of common commitments, shared responsibilities, and differentiated goals. One remarkable thing about the agenda is the involvement of all sectors of society. In its paragraph 41, the agenda says, "We acknowledge the role of the diverse private sector, ranging from micro-enterprises to cooperatives to multinationals, and that of civil society organizations and philanthropic organizations in the implementation of the new agenda." This was the first worldwide UN declaration that finally recognized the unavoidable and necessary contribution of business companies to achieve these goals. These are the 5 P's of the Sustainable Development Goals: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. We will see now the 17 goals. The declaration, the Agenda 2030, defines the 17 goals, the 169 targets, and 232 global indicators. Also refers to the resources to implement the agenda defined in the Addis Ababa conference, emphasizing alliances of all the actors responsible for the fulfillment of the agenda: governments, companies, universities, and other members of the civil society. This is the most important differentiating factor between the MDGs and the SDGs. It is an agenda for all that we must achieve together. In addition, another important aspect that distinguishes the new agenda is the monitoring and review process. Since 2016, the high-level political forum has been held, made up of governments, companies, and NGOs. Every year, it will be in charge of reviewing and evaluate the objectives by groups and their progress, in order to make a complete report of the achievements and put efforts in the most critical areas. SDG Compass is a document to guide companies on how they can align their strategies as well as measure and manage their contribution to the SDGs. The guide presents 5 steps that assist companies in maximizing their contribution to the SDGs. Companies can apply these 5 steps to set or align their course depending on where they are on the journey of ensuring that sustainability is an outcome of core business strategy. The 5 steps of the SDG Compass rest on the recognition of the responsibility of all companies to comply with all relevant legislation, respect international minimum standards, and address as a priority all negative human rights impacts. First step is understanding the SDGs. What are the SDGs? Second step is defining priorities, mapping the SDGs against the value chain to increase positive impact and minimize negative impact. Third, setting goals and select KPIs. Select the level of ambition and announce publicly your own SDG commitment. Fourth, integrating, anchoring sustainability goals within the business, embedding sustainability across all functions and engaging in partnerships. And the fifth one, mapping your report priorities through materiality, reporting and communicating your performance year after year. See you soon!